Welcome to Rewind the Game, a retro football podcast. I'm your host, the Mad Scientist. First of all, there goes a huge shout out to Dan, aka DeeBoiPlays, aka the Jingle Master, for making the awesome intro jingle music for this podcast. This podcast is dedicated to football history and to football manager history, and this is the pilot episode. So I'm going to invite a guest to join me on each episode. We'll talk with them about their favorite football memories, champ man, football manager memories as well. And we'll also have a little retro football quiz for our guest later, which I'm looking very much forward to. We have set up a leaderboard table and all, so we can crown a champion at the end of the season. Let me tell you, we are starting out with a banger today because we are blessed to be joined on our pilot episode by one of my absolute favorite FM streamers. A good time is guaranteed when you drop by one of his streams. It's FM Llama, people. Thanks for joining us, Llama.
You bring all the niceties you like. I've just realised exactly what you've been doing from your intro there. This is a retro football podcast. We'll be talking about players and FM from years gone by. So you've picked the oldest FM streamer you could possibly imagine, dragged him out here just so that he can talk retro football.
You're on point, almost. To be honest, actually, I think it was on FM 22 that you and we were in a panel for a draft competition where, was it the FM playoffs who used
That would be it, yeah.
Yeah, right, the 92, 93 database. And I remember hanging out with you all night, talking about all the good old players. I had just such a blast. You did brilliant. So to be honest, you were the first that came into mind when I started planning for this database.
Yeah, and what you've not just told your viewers and your listeners is that there was the 1922-23 season database that you
did. Good point. All right, let's get right to it, mate. Would you please tell us how you came up with your content creator name?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I seem to talk about this a lot. Everybody thinks it's because of the animal. That
exactly.
I have some kind of like intimate affection for the camelid that is the llama. And it's not that at all. Okay. So a long, long time ago, back when people used to use message boards, there was the Sports Interactive Football Manager or Championship Manager in those days message boards. Yes. And there used to be a forum called the Llama Forum, which was for people who like to play lower league management style of football manager, or LLM, or llamas as they became known. So people who like to start their football manager saves in the bottom and playable division and see if they could make their way to the big time, or in most cases just stay in the very bottom playable division. So when I started making football manager content, I was going to play using this llama style, so I called myself FM Llama.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does. It would have maybe like 15 to 20 years ago. Nowadays, nobody remembers that forum at all.
Don't consider changing it.
No, I'm stuck with it now.
Exactly. All right, we gotta get the important things set as well. So I gotta ask you, who do you support, Llama, and how did you become a supporter? Is it something that was passed by a family member, or did you choose yourself? Let us know.
No, it's always good, isn't it, when you support a terrible football team, but you can blame the generations above you for that. So I support an English team called Birmingham City. If you've got an international audience, they may never have heard of that club. They produced the Bellinghams. That's pretty much what we're known as.
And they were in the Prem at some point as well.
They were in the Premier League. That was getting on for 15 years ago now.
Oh, time flies.
And we're back in the Championship now after a year in League One. That's the third tier of English football, and that is who my dad supports and who his father supported. So I come from a long line of sufferers, and they kindly gave it to me. Oddly, my brother, who grew up in the same household, obviously he's an Aston Villa supporter. So,
oh wow!
Yeah, when I was growing up, even though I was a Birmingham City fan, and there's meant to be a lot of rivalry, a lot of tension. This is kind of like Copenhagen-Brøndby kind of rivalry here.
Yeah.
I used to go and watch Villa play on some weeks and Birmingham play on different weeks. So I was no stranger to Villa Park growing up.
Oh, wow. And I was actually just about to ask you if you remember the first game that you went to stadium to watch.
I did. So this is very llama-y. Okay, so the very first game that I went to watch wasn't even a football league game. It was what was in those days called the Vauxhall Conference, but like a Tier
Oh,
5, a National League game.
yeah,
I don't know who the opponents were, but it was at Bromsgrove Rovers. So that was the very
brilliant.
first game that I went to watch, and then maybe several months later, my first ever Birmingham game would have been in like 1991 when
Oh,
most of your viewers weren't even born. And Birmingham were at home to Hartlepool United in the
yes.
third tier of English football.
Wow. That's history for you right there. I love to hear it
Yeah,
like
so the
that.
whole
Yeah.
game was in black and white.
Yeah.
Players arrived at the game by horse and cart, that kind of thing.
That's fantastic. Talking about the players, actually, who would you highlight as your all-time favorite Birmingham players?
Oh, okay. So that's a question where we've got to go right down into the bottom of the barrel because those Bellingham asides, we've not had a lot of world class talent in my lifetime. Obviously, my dad would have watched players like Trevor Francis, the first £1 million player.
Yes.
That was all gladly a little bit before my time. My favourite players would have been from the 90s, which is like my favourite decade of football, when Birmingham were kind of like bouncing between the second and third tiers. So it's not like we had world beaters. But we had a player which I'm going to leave out because I'm going to mention him later in something different. But one of my very, very early favourite players was a Canadian international called Paul Pesky Salido.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
I think he's probably more famous. I think this was right. In an FA Cup semi final, I think when he was at maybe Sheffield United, he had a header where David Seaman produced a wonder save where he dived back onto his own goal line and poured the ball out.
Oh,
Pretty sure
wow.
Paul Pesky Salido was the player that headed that chance at goal. But
Ah, brilliant.
he was one of my favourites at Birmingham. He was about 4'10" tall. He's like a little striker. He's
Yeah. I used to
scampering
sign
around.
him. I used to sign him all the time back in the day just because of that last name.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember growing up, like there wasn't as much social media around. So when there was a debate about how somebody's name should be pronounced, it was a bit harder to settle because most things were in print. So some people would say Pesky Solido, some people say Pesky Solido.
Yeah.
And in Birmingham, with that accent, they all sounded very similar anyway.
Oh, that's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about Champ, man. Do you
Okay.
remember what was the first version you played of the game, and did someone introduce it to you, or how did you come across it back then?
Yeah, so even though I am incredibly old, I didn't actually play the very first version of Championship Manager. So my first introduction was Champman 93, which I guess was released in 1992. And I remember going over to my cousin's house in Birmingham, and he had it on his Amiga 500. And every time I used to go over to my cousin's house, we'd have like these gaming evenings. Like the parents would be in the front room and they'd be doing like, parenting things. And then all the kids would be huddled around this Amiga, just like spellbound by the latest games that my cousin had. And we'd been through things like Sensible World of Soccer. We played Manchester United in Europe, which is like a really early Amiga game. In Manchester United in Europe, there was kind of like a little bit of a management element to it. I'm pretty sure you could sign players in that. But I remember going to his house, and it kind of shows the impression that it makes on you. I can remember playing Championship Manager for the first time, and he loaded it up, and I was like, oh my god, what is this? There was no playing of the game. There was no kind of like moving players around or anything. It was all just like the clicking of buttons. But to like a 12-year-old me, it was like, okay, I've seen the future now. This is what
Yeah.
it looks like. I mean,
Yes.
this was like Marty McFly going forward in time in Back to the Future. It was like this was amazing. So we had this save going where I was managing Sheffield Wednesdays. That was like my first ever Football Manager save.
Oh,
And
really?
every time I'd go over there, we'd play it for a couple of hours. I don't remember ever getting out of pre-season the whole time we were playing, but we just loved it anyway.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, I can relate so much. That thing sitting three, four of your friends
That's
looking
it.
at the same screen and loading it up on the Amiga. I still have the original Championship Manager Italia
Oh wow,
from
yeah.
1993. I think it's 93, 94 season, this one, but yeah, still got the Amiga 500 version as well. And it's just a blast from the past talking about those games back then. Now you mentioned Manchester United Europe as well. I remember that one. Did you play other football management games before you stumbled upon Champion?
I did, yeah, but they were really kind of rudimentary ones, which is what made Championship Manager seem so. It's going to sound odd in the current day and age, but it felt really futuristic back then, you know? Now, like, graphically, people say it lags behind a little bit. But yeah, before that, I'd played games I doubt anybody will ever have heard of. So there was one that I played called Soccer Boss, where it didn't matter which team you selected to be, you were given the same squad of names, and they were fictitious names. So you could pick from Arsenal in the first division all the way down to Carlisle in the fourth division. You get the same list of players, and they were all customizable. So you pressed enter on them, and you could just kind of like type in the mad scientist or whatever you wanted to put in there. And I remember like my first PC football manager game was just called Goal. And it was so basic, it was ridiculous. It was an international management game, and the players were just like little Pac-Men, like little blobs, and there was this tiny little white dot that would move around, and you would pick your international squad and compete at tournaments. Um, if people were to play these games now, like even on their phone, they would think this is like the Pong of football management games. But back then, honestly, they were just fabulous.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, if we dip out of video games for a moment, my kind of introduction to football management games was, I don't know whether you would have had this in continental Europe, but you had games that you would play via post, where you would take over a team, and they kind of like post you information for your next game, and you'd pick your lineup.
Yeah.
You'd submit transfer bids for
Yes.
players that were on the transfer list, and
Yes.
they were like a silent auction. So if you got the highest bid in there, you'd get the player for the next round, and you had to put your team selections in an envelope, go and post it, and then you'd find out like a week later if you'd won the game or not. So
Yeah.
compared to playing by mail, and I really am showing my age here, but compared to playing via post, these really basic games that we had, they just seemed incredible.
Yes, yes. I did play by mail as well because I came across it in a football magazine.
That's it. You used to find them in the backs
Yeah,
of
right.
magazines.
Can't remember if it was called Goal as well, the magazine, or something like that. It was an English magazine, so I submitted my transfers to England with post. Yeah, that sounds like we're from the Stone Age, actually,
Yeah,
Llama.
absolutely. Yeah, you would give it to a carrier pigeon who would fly it over to England to see if you'd won your match or not.
Exactly,
Ridiculous.
exactly.
But you got
Oh
to
my
remember,
god.
these are such simplistic
Yeah,
times
yeah,
technologically compared to now. Um,
exactly.
that I guess that gives you maybe like a bit of a different perspective when there's a lot of grumbles going on about FM 24, 25, 26, graphical engines, is it going to happen? Is it going to be bug ridden? And you just think, look, if I don't have to attach a stamp to it and post it, it's a good
Yes,
game, in my
exactly.
opinion.
I'm completely with you on that. Absolutely. So you have actually played Jumpman and slash Football Manager for many years. If I ask you to highlight some of your favorite wonder kids from the game, who would that be?
I mean, this is such a cliche. I guess the biggest cliche is Freddie Adu, right? I remember a few of the pre-Freddie Adu Wonder Kids. So there used to be a player in the early days called Tonton Zola Makoko.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he signed him from Derby County, if I remember rightly. He could be an attacking midfielder or a striker. He was an absolute powerhouse, especially. And there was another player around that era that I really liked to sign called Peter Prosper, who I think played out in Lebanon. He was a striker. And I've never really heard of either of these players going on to do anything in professional football. But in Football Manager, they were incredible. Plus, there was the guy right in the early days who was a sports interactive researcher who snuck himself into the game. Is that To Madeira?
Yes, he
Uh,
went to Madeira on vacation on holiday.
so yeah, I remember him. He was excellent as well. Um, and some of my other favorite Wonder Kids are all of that era. Do you remember? I mean, of course you will, being from Denmark, but the Nordic and Scandinavian nations used to be a hotbed of players that you could go and sign that would be great in Football Manager. So Alexanderson, Teddy Lukic, Kennedy Bakircioglu, Kim Källström as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Just fabulous players. Even like a young Peter Lovenkrantz.
Oh,
And
yeah.
them are just great players that you could go and get. Even was there a player for Brondby? Was he called Dan Eggen, like a centre half?
He was Norwegian.
He was Norwegian. Did he play
Yeah.
for Brondby
Yeah, he did.
though?
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember you could go and get him for an absolute bargain, and
Yeah.
that would be your defence just organised for the next decade in the
Yeah.
game. It's fabulous.
Some great shouts. I love them all. And if we continue to talk about CM/FM for a bit, we all had those saves that stands out more than others for various reasons. Which memorable saves comes to your mind?
Okay, well, yeah, we've got 30 years to choose from here. I mean, when you were mentioning, four of you being sat in a line and you're all playing the game together, so I do remember in those early days, we only had one PC between me and my brother. And I don't know why we didn't have a desk for it. It was on the floor.
Oh,
So, we'd both be lying there for the summer holidays, passing the mouse to each other.
yeah.
And I remember we started this absolutely epic save where he would always start as Blackburn Rovers because they had Jack Walker's Millions behind them in the early 90s. And he would like to go and sign like great players with all of that money. And even at that age, I always liked an underdog story. So he
Oh,
put himself in as Blackburn Rovers and I put myself in as Everton. And we had this season where we were kind of like in a championship battle against each other, and we
that's the best.
passed the mouse between us. And in that first season as Everton, I pipped him to the title, and I was
Oh,
on top of the world. I'd beaten the great Blackburn Rovers to the Premier League
fantastic.
title. And then in season two, I was obviously in the, would it have been the European Cup? It'd probably been the early phase of the Champions League by then. And it was just too much for Everton. We absolutely folded. We capitulated. And
Oh,
he was top of the league with Blackburn. So I did my first ever Football Manager rage quit.
oh,
I resigned my position as Everton. I said, this game is stupid. I hate it. You play by yourself. I'm off. And then you know what Championship Manager, Football Manager's like. After watching 15, 20, 30 minutes of somebody else playing it, you think, I want back in. I want another
yes.
go. But I've lost my job. So I now have to hunt around for a new job. And the only one that I could find was at Coventry City, who I think had just sacked Ron Atkinson, I think, would have been their manager at the time. So I took the Coventry City job, and my brother romped to the league title with Blackburn. But I managed to sign Daniel Amakachi from my title winning Everton
Oh,
side, took him to Coventry, and he scored the 2 goals that secured the League Cup final for Coventry. And that was it. I was back in. Well, who needed
yes.
Everton? Who needed winning wins? It was all about League Cup wins with Coventry. The fact that that save would have been, I don't know, maybe 1995, something like that. So 30 years ago. And I can still remember the signings and the final. I'm
That's
pretty
fantastic.
sure it was the version where they had, I think, Clive Tildesley doing commentary for the games.
Oh,
And so, like, you'd have the little text at the bottom of the screen, but
yeah.
you also had these pre recorded, quite clunky lines of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
commentary. I'm pretty sure that was the version that I played. So I remember that save as if it was yesterday.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, I've just been playing ever since, going through quite oddly different kind of phases of Football Manager where I would like to play in different countries for like a few versions in a row.
Ah,
So yeah, I've been around a bit over the years. So obviously when I first started playing Football Manager, being from England, my saves tended to be in England. So I started out managing Premier League clubs, and then I thought, well, let's just go and do a Birmingham save in the second division, and then the next version I go, well, let's just go down a division more and a division more,
ah,
and then once I kind of like exhausted managing in England over the first few years of playing Football Manager, I then went through phases of just binging other countries. So after England, I went and played in France for about 3 or 4 versions of Football Manager. I had some great saves with Auxerre, with Nantes, with Lens. when they had like Vladimir Smitsa playing for them. And then, I was kind of in my late teens. For some reason, Belgium, next championship manager obsession, managing um, some of the bigger clubs like Liège. I remember having a real good save there, and then I
Oh,
just dropped
really?
down the leagues a little bit. So I was managing like Rupel Boom. I was managing
Oh,
Union Royale Namur was one of like my big lower league saves in
wow.
Belgium, and then after the Belgian years came Norway, and
Oh,
that was I probably spent about 6 or 7 years. God, this is so embarrassing and depressing to talk about. Only Football Manager fans would
yeah.
understand this. But for about 7 years, having previously not really known anything about Norwegian football, it just became my football managing home for about 6 or 7 years. Just managing like lower league Norwegian clubs.
Wow.
And bizarrely, so I started managing clubs in the south. I remember managing a club called Mercantile, Lillehammer. And then I don't know why I developed this obsession with trying to manage teams from further and further north.
Oh,
So I
really?
think the furthest north I ever went in Norway was managing a team called FK Hammerfest, who even had a polar bear on their club
Oh,
emblem, their logo.
nice.
And yeah, God, yeah, I just loved managing in Norway for a long, long time.
It's so interesting how it's developed over the years. You've taken a trip around Europe and really dedicated yourself to certain countries like that. That's really interesting.
Well, yeah, interesting to somebody else who plays the game, but
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
quite bizarre to any layperson listening to this. So people who are tuning into your podcast for the retro football
Oh,
angle
yeah, yeah.
are thinking, what is this guy talking about right now? People who are tuning in because of the football manager angle, yes, completely understand what he's talking about here.
That's a very good point. I just want to ask one question actually about when you and your brother played together. Do you remember how you handled the transfer windows?
Um, as in trying to steal players off each other.
Yeah, did one leave the room and the other guy took care of his transfer business? Or did you discuss who to buy or
I remember there's a lot of verbal discussions, like you give me that player, that player, that player, and I'll
yes.
give you this one that you
Yes.
wanted. No, that's a terrible deal. I'm not doing that. But yeah, my brother has always played Football Manager very differently to me. I like an underdog story. I like to start at the bottom. He loves spending the money. Okay, he
All
loves
right.
splashing out big on the transfers.
Yeah. Yeah, there's those different approaches. There still is to this day, and I think that's one of the most beautiful thing about the game actually. You can play the game so very different.
Absolutely, I think two people could in the same household could be playing the same game, but they're playing like a different version of it.
Exactly.
For me, it's always been about. I mean, this is such a silly thing to say or to admit that playing Football Manager has always been for me about trying to create the version of football I wish existed in real life,
Oh
where the
yeah.
the underdog story always happens, and the Goliath always gets defeated and David is always victorious. And
Yes.
so I've always played Football Manager in a way that tries to create that underdog story. That when Leicester City won the Premier League in
Yeah.
real life, that's what I'm always trying to create in Football Manager, that underdog story.
Doing the impossible. That's the saves
That's
you
it.
remember as well, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, enough Champman's football manager for now. Let's talk about a little football history then.
Okay.
So when I was a kid slash teen, the World Cup was the biggest thing. It
Mm.
was always summer, football on the telly, sticker book albums.
Oh,
I got one good one, like right here
beautiful.
from my favorite World Cup back in the day, Italia '90.
Aha.
And we all have these favorite World Cups. Which one is your Llama? And do you have a favorite World Cup moment?
Mine is also Italian 90. I remember coming back from school the day of the first game, which would have been Cameroon versus Argentina. I remember literally asking to my mom, saying, "Can I run back now? Can I run back?" Because I knew that the build up, the coverage had started, and I didn't want to miss any of it. And you pulled out the sticker book there. I remember for Italia 90, there wasn't as much media around in those days. Certainly not that a 10-year-old was watching. So a lot of the build up to Italia 90 for me was through collecting the stickers, you know, learning the players. I'd never heard of countries like Costa Rica or Cameroon there. So getting like Cyril Makanaki on a sticker for Italia 90 was like, I remember going through that Panini album, and you'd be learning their heights, you'd be learning their positions, you'd be learning what clubs they were playing for. You just kind of like used to read it cover to cover, and you just wait for when your dad might fill it with petrol, and just on the counter there they'd have some stickers, and he'd come back out to the car and say, "Oh, I've got you a couple of these," and you tear them open. Just used to love it. It wasn't even like collecting those stickers, it was like learning about the tournament that was about to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, Italia 90 for me was my absolute favorite, and it is just absolutely peppered with moments.
Yeah.
So from that first game, those challenges on the Argentina players that led to the Cameroon red cards. So those stick out. I mean, those were assaults. Those were imprisonable challenges.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved them.
And they won Cameroon.
And then they won. So I remember the header from, was it Kanya Biik?
Oman Biik, I think.
Oman Biik.
Oman, yeah.
And was it Pompidou in goal? Kind of like spilt
yeah.
it on his line, and it just kind of spun over the goal line. And maybe this is what started my obsession with underdog football, you know, because nobody thought that Cameroon could win that game. Cameroon didn't think that Cameroon could win that game. This was Argentina. This was Maradona's Argentina here,
who won the World Cup '86.
Of course,
yeah,
of course, and who, with an act of brilliance and with an act of deception, should we say, knocked England out.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Nobody thought that Cameroon could win that. So I remember those moments. A lot of my other memories surround England, and the player Paul Gascoigne, who just lit up that World Cup for England fans with moments of complete non-Englishness, you know. So even by the age of 10, I knew that we were no good at football as a nation, that we could run harder, that we would sweat more than other nations, but we had no talent. Our feet really were superfluous in a game of football. And then there was this kid called Paul Gascoigne, who, when he had the ball at his feet, it was like you were watching a Colombian, a Spaniard, an Italian play the game. You know, Germany would have their Lothar Matthäus, and we had this young Geordie called Paul Gascoigne, who just seemed to be able to travel from his own box to the opposition box and just spray passes around and create chances. So yeah, a lot of the memories involve him.
Yeah, the flair on Gaza those years, he absolutely stood out. I remember David Platt's goal that World Cup as well, and Gary Lineker was just like so clinical. I was so
Absolutely.
impressed, with Lineker back then.
Of course, the other thing I remember about that World Cup is it had some of the most fabulous haircuts that I think have ever graced a tournament.
Yes, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, like Valderrama, obviously. Like a 10-year-old me, when he pulled open the Valderrama sticker, I was like,
yeah, what's
I've
going on?
I've got to tune into Colombia games.
Exactly.
And you've got players like Thomas Scuravi, Roland Nilsson for Sweden was rocking the spiky wet look mullet. How do you do that? It was absolutely super. Kanigia looked like he was just straight out of like a Bon Jovi video.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible hair.
Running fast with the hair in the wind behind him. Yeah.
And it's only now that I'm a lot older, and I listen to kind of like programs or podcasts about Italia 90. It was seen as like a really defensive, negative, not very entertaining tournament. I was gripped.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was like for you in Denmark, but 1990 was a time where we didn't have a lot of televised football in England.
Yeah.
English clubs were banned from European competition at the time, so we didn't really have any exposure to foreign football either. So to have all of these games with all of these exotic continental countries and players in, it was just, I never knew that football could be wall to wall before, that you could have 3 games per day and you could be watching like Jack Charlton's Republic of Ireland knocking out Romania in penalty
Yes.
shootouts in the stadium in Genoa, that, you know, those really iconic Italian 90 stadiums, like the turrets of the San Siro and
Yeah.
those right angled corner buildings in the Sampdoria stadium. You just think,
Exactly.
this is so different to football I've seen before. It's just spellbinding.
Me as well. That's why I have so many fond memories of World Cups back in the day.
Come on, give me one then from Italia 90, just one.
Uh,
Because there was
first,
no Denmark, was there, at
no,
that
we
tournament?
didn't. We didn't even qualify for that World Cup. And
Mexico 86, you were there?
Mexico '86, I remember it vaguely, but probably mostly from my family.
And
My
Euro
dad.
92 you turned up to.
Of course we did.
You,
Of
you
course we
gate
did.
crashed that little party.
Definitely we did.
But
But
no Denmark at
'86,
Italia 90.
people talk so much about the Danish Dynamite team in '86. We shocked the world, played beautiful football, such a little country as well. But Italia 1990, Salvatore Schilazzi, Toto
Oh,
Schilazzi, who wasn't a star for Italy, anything like that. But every time they subbed him on, he scored a goal. He stands out for me from that World Cup. And as you mentioned, the World Cup in 1990 has a bad reputation, actually.
mm.
It's never highlighted. It was boring, low goal scoring. But it's still really, it's also my favorite World Cup.
Yeah. That's just, I think maybe because maybe it was the time in our lives when it
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
But
Plays
yeah,
in.
especially for your nation not to be there and that's still to be your favorite World Cup, there must
Yeah.
have been some kind of special aura about it.
Yeah, true that. True that. It's probably the age thing as well, or something like that. But yeah, we can talk about all those players as long as we want. But it takes me on to the next segment actually. But let's get to it. It's time for you to assemble your all-time best starting 11.
Okay.
Whatever formation you prefer, whatever rules you prefer, it's your team. There's no wrong answers.
So it's fine if I line them up in a very typical 1990s 4-4-2 then, is it?
Oh, I like it. I like
There
it.
we go.
Definitely.
That'll be my tactic
Are
then.
we starting out with the goalkeeper, or how do we
Yeah.
approach it?
Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll just go. We'll go 1 to 11. We'll
I
start out
love
the goal.
it.
And okay, so before I go through my what I see as my best ever football team, let me just preface this by saying that when you sent through the fact that one thing you were going to ask me was my all-time 1 to 11 team of retro footballers, I decided that if you're going to ask other guests in future weeks that same question, there's probably going to be a lot of people that all say, oh, well, Maradona, well, Pele, Cruyff, Platini. And obviously, I know that these are supposedly some of the greatest players in history, but I've never seen any of those people play. I've never even watched full 90 minutes of their games. So I've left out all of your typical best ever players. And instead, I racked my brain to think of who are the best 11 players that I have physically seen play myself in a stadium. So what I thought I'd go through is my best ever 1 to 11 of players I've seen play live in the flesh.
I really like that approach. I really like it. I look forward to hear how this team looks like. Take
Okay.
it away.
Well, it doesn't start the best, okay? Because I was thinking about all of the goalkeepers that I've ever seen
Yeah.
play. And I've seen some big teams play, but I've seen them play in relative recent years. So I've seen goalkeepers like Donnarumma, I've seen Ter Stegen, I've seen Edison and goalkeepers like that.
All right. Yeah.
Growing up, I was watching a lot of Birmingham games, so I wasn't always exposed to the greatest standard of football. But there was one game in 1996 where I saw Birmingham play against Arsenal. And Arsenal had a goalkeeper who'd actually used to play for Birmingham before he played for Arsenal. He's called David Seaman. And because he used to play for Birmingham, there was a lot of good-natured back and forth between him and the crowd during the game. And it kind of drew my attention to him. And I started watching the way he was playing with the crowd. And Birmingham fans were singing to Seaman that he was secretly a Birmingham fan, or a blue nose, as we call them in the West Midlands.
Did he
And
already have the long hair? 96, did you say?
no, I think he'd gone pretty short at the back and sides. He hadn't
right.
mulleted it out yet, but you'll be pleased to know the moustache was there in force. Okay, so that was there. And he also had, I mean, how he made such athletic stops during this game in some of the tightest shorts I have seen a goalkeeper wear
Yeah.
is absolutely beyond me. How he had any blood flow to the lower parts of his legs, I don't understand. But he was majestic in this game. He was
Oh,
like a cat. And I just remember thinking for the first time, that is a real goalkeeper, and that is a proper player. So he just represented England during Euro 96 when I watched this game. And you just felt like you were watching a proper player in action there. So David Seaman in goal.
Great start.
Now, for right back, this is where you might start getting a bit misty-eyed, because I know you like your players who've played in Italy or in Serie A. And in 2006, I was fortunate enough to watch a Milan game, and they had some players in that team. And at right back, they had a Brazilian player called Cafu.
Oh,
And I was watching him play in this game, and I have never seen a player cover so much ground in my life. Winning tackles by his defensive corner flag. And then you look up and he was whipping in a cross from the attacking corner flag, and never tired during the entire game. He was as quick in the 70th, 80th minute as he was in the first. And again, it's just one of those times where you're watching football, and growing up watching Birmingham, you never thought this, where you just feel like, I am watching a world-class player in action here.
yeah.
And a couple of his teammates will make up the midfield. In a
Oh,
moment.
interesting.
But I've gone elsewhere for the centre halves.
Did you say 06, 2006?
Yeah.
So it's not even a young Cafu. He was probably past 30 at that point in time.
Yeah. But I don't think it really mattered.
No.
I think he just slept in one of these cryogenic
Yeah.
chambers just to have the lung capacity of an 18-year-old.
Yes. Please continue, sir.
Well, so talking of veterans, my next two players at centre half, I saw them play when they were real veterans.
Okay.
But even though they were probably about 5 years older than anybody else on the pitch, you could just tell you were watching quality.
Yeah.
So in 1993, I went to a Birmingham game where we were playing Swindon Town. And amazingly, this hardly ever happened as Birmingham. We were 4-1 up after about 60 minutes. And we were on the terraces thinking, this is the best game of football I've ever watched. Birmingham have scored 4 goals in a match. This is amazing. And then a Swindon centre-back called Glenn Hoddle moved himself into midfield. And even though there was only about 28 minutes left of the game, Birmingham went from being 4-1 up to losing 6-4 in that game.
Wow.
And Mr. Hoddle, who must have been mid-30s by this time.
Player manager, presumably?
Player manager, indeed. Absolutely just ruled the game. Wow. It was incredible to watch. And even though he was he was way past his prime. He started himself as a sweeper and then moved into midfield in this game. I've never seen passing like it, just spraying passes around everywhere. Absolutely incredible. So I'm going to use him as one of my centre backs.
Sounds like a good idea.
Alongside a player who I actually saw play for Birmingham City. And again, it's one of the rare occasions where I've been watching football where I just looked at a player and thought, you are so many levels above anybody else that is on your pitch. It's incredible. And so this player was playing for Birmingham in 1996, and we signed him from Manchester United, and he was called Steve Bruce, who lots of people say is one of the best English players never to win a cap for England. Yeah. Obviously, multiple times Premier League winner. And when Trevor Francis was Birmingham manager, he managed to attract Steve Bruce to Birmingham. And he played as a central defender for us. And he must have been 34, 35 by the time we signed. And he was a Rolls Royce of a defender. So didn't need to be quick because he knew what was happening in the game in 3 weeks' time as it was unfolding on the pitch now. It was just his reading of the game.
Yeah, the
way
IQ.
He covered everything. That's it, the footballing intelligence, I think the cool kids would call it. And you're just watching him thinking, this player is too good to play for my football team. It's ridiculous.
And he could score goals as well, Steve Bruce, in his prime at least. Yeah,
he used to be a penalty taker for Manchester United, didn't he? So he was good. And then in a slightly lopsided formation, rather than left back, I'm going to squeeze in another centre half if I can. purely because, well, Glenn Hoddle, he can play wherever he wants in that back four, can't he?
Good
And
point.
again, I mentioned earlier that with my brother being an Aston Villa fan, I used to go and watch them play
Oh
during the
yeah.
90s as well. And they had a centre back from the Republic of Ireland called Paul McGrath that
Yes.
played for them. And again, he was no spring chicken when he was playing for Aston Villa. So early 30s. I don't think he had any cartilage in either of his knees. I don't think he trained at all during the
Exactly.
week. He would just turn up with his kit bag on a Saturday and just put in these most mesmerizing performances. I don't know what it was about centre halves in the 90s, like the covering tackles that they used to
Yeah,
make. There was so much kind of like sliding and on the ground defending than there is in the modern game. It was just
definitely.
majestic to watch. So
And
a back four of
no wonder why the champ man researchers gave all those defenders 20 positioning.
of course, they were amazing. They were
Yeah.
so intelligent. So yeah, back four: Cafu, Hoddle, Bruce, McGrath.
Solid, solid. I love it.
Right, I think you'll probably love my central midfield more because it's your kind of central midfield. So I'll
Oh,
announce them both together because they were playing alongside Cafu in that Milan game.
oh,
In central midfield, they had Pirlo and Seedorf.
oh,
And again, just pitching those two next to each other felt unfair. Really, FIFA or UEFA probably should have stepped in and done something about that and maybe deducted Milan points for the
yeah.
audacity of pairing them
Because
together.
you can't win the ball from them. You can't take
Oh,
it.
I mean, Pirlo in particular, because of the style of player he was, very languid. I don't think I've ever seen him sprint. Everything was done at his pace.
Yeah,
But the quickest thing about him was his mind. Everything on the half turn, constantly scanning. You know, he would know what play he's going to do before the ball
yeah,
comes to him.
yeah.
And especially watching a lot of football in England, which is often a little bit more physical, aggressive, relies a lot more on crosses and things like that. To watch an artist at work like Pirlo with Seedorf
Yeah,
next to him
yeah.
making such intelligent runs, the pair of them, it was just honestly a pleasure to watch
That's
them.
fantastic. Can I just ask you, what game was it you watched Milan?
Bizarrely, when I first met Mrs. Llama, she was living in America, even though she's British. So I used to go out for the summers to America, and it was one of those pre-season tournaments that they
Oh,
have in America, and Milan were taking on Chelsea. And this was a Chelsea side instead. It had Drogba, it had
yeah.
Lampard, but these Milan players were just on a different level. It was incredible.
That experience.
Yeah, it was absolutely great, and I remember we were sat amongst Chelsea fans, and I think they just signed Sean Wright Phillips, and they were all going, "Oh, we're going to get to see SWP today. Milan aren't going to cope with him." And you watch 5 minutes of this game and go, "No, hold on a second. We've got Nesta, we've got Cafu, we've got Pirlo, we have got Seedorf, and then we got Sean Wright Phillips here. This is not a proper contest at all."
All right. Fantastic.
And then we've got wide players.
Yeah, where do we go from here?
So we're going to go with a player who I honestly know is not one of the best players in the world, and he's not even one of the best players that I've seen. But I wanted to give a spot to you. You asked me at the top of the show some of my favourite Birmingham players, and I missed out my very favourite. And I wanted to squeeze one of my favourites into my all time team here, just as like a nod to that player who, even though they might not be the best player, even at your club, in your young life, they're your first ever footballing hero. They're that first player that gets you off your feet, that gets you excited to watch the game. That first ever player who just seems like a really exotic signing for your club. So in the 1990s, for the 1994-95 season, my Birmingham team signed a Portuguese winger called Jose Dominguez, who went on to play for Sporting Lisbon and for Tottenham Hotspur as well. He was about 5'4" tall. He would play on the wing, would beat a man and wouldn't be happy with that, so he'd go back and try and beat him again. He had no intention of shooting, no intention of crossing. He just wanted to dribble around. And as a Birmingham City fan who'd been treated to some pretty agricultural football in the early 90s, just to watch this little magician on the pitch where you watched football was absolutely superb. So, Yeah, Jose Dominguez. I'm squeezing in on the wing there.
I love that addition for all the right reasons. Absolutely.
He's probably a player that maybe not that many people remember, but he did play in the Premier League. I think he played in Bundesliga as well, and he played in the top flight in Portugal. May even have some international caps.
Fantastic choice. I love those obscure additions to a team like this, but he means something for you. That's the most important.
Absolutely. And then I've got one other player in my midfield who I'll leave till last, and I'll move to my two strikers. So my two strikers are going to form a very British 90s strike force, even though one of them is not British. Okay. So
All right.
one player who I saw play at Birmingham in the 90s was in a competition that we used to have in England called the Anglo-Italian Cup.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
It was a competition that took place between Serie B teams and teams in England's second tier.
Exactly.
Why this competition took place, I don't know.
No, it was so good. I remember seeing Georgia Hachi, who played
That's
for
right,
Brescia,
Brescia.
playing at Notts County or something like that.
That's right. In the final, I
In the
think,
final, yeah.
at Wembley. Now, I know that they invented that tournament because Swindon Town won the League Cup, I think in maybe like the 70s. And the FA didn't want a second division team to represent England in Europe.
Oh.
So they organised them a game against Roma and called it the Anglo-Italian Cup. And they gave
really?
Swindon's European place to another team, I think. And this
Wow.
competition just kept going. So
Yeah.
eventually it became a between England's second tier and Italy's second tier.
Yeah.
And I once saw a team called Ascoli come to Birmingham to play. And they had a young German striker called Oliver Bierhoff playing for them. So this would have been in about 1992, maybe 1993. And again, I had no idea who Oliver Bierhoff was at the start of the game, but by the end of it, I absolutely did. And just, 3 years later or so, he's scoring Euro 96 golden goals to win the final against the Czech Republic. And you think, God, he was playing in the Anglo-Italian Cup. And they were like, why was Georgie Hadji playing in that competition? So Oliver Bierhoff was an absolute pleasure to watch. And then another player I saw play in the 90s that really just made me, sit up and take notice was a young-ish Alan Shearer playing for Blackburn Rovers.
Yes.
I think this was the season before Blackburn Rovers actually won the title.
They finished third or something, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And God, he was just absolutely incredible. He was still, people remember him in his later years, think of him as kind of like a hold-up, target-forward kind of player. But he was actually quite versatile in the early part of his career. He was pretty pacey, would get in behind defenders, would run channels, would work really hard. If, like, you never actually saw Alan Shearer play, he would kind of be a mixture of maybe like a Jamie Vardy player mixed with a much kind of more powerful, stronger target forward kind of player. Maybe like the best comparison I could make now is like a young Shearer might be a little bit like Alexander Isak, who would be quick, could run in behind, but was also aerially quite impressive as well. And just watching a striker that could cover so many facets of the game, especially when you were used to watching Birmingham most weeks, and then you were watching an Aston Villa game against Blackburn. Yeah, Alan Shearer, just absolutely incredible, which means I've only got one more space in my team to fill.
Yeah, but I like that striker combination. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it would have to be quite a young Shearer, otherwise we really are just lumping the ball into the
Fair
box
enough,
for
yeah.
Bierhoff and Shearer. And my final player is a midfielder, and it's one that I never got to see play in real life. Just one that I really wish I had. If I could have one pick of player that I would have seen in the flesh, it would be that player I mentioned earlier in relation to Italian 90, Paul Gascoigne. Because, watching a lot of England games, you become very used to watching continental teams with such exquisite, cultured midfielders. And England have put out a midfield of, say, David Batty and Paul Ince to try and combat them. And it's very workmanlike and it's very honest and it's got great endeavour. But, it's not Guardiola or it's not Valderrama or it's not Hadji or players like that. And growing up watching Paul Gascoigne, it's the one time you watched an English player and just thought, wow, you really are special. You really can do whatever you want with a football, and especially at a time when he moved out to Italy to play for Lazio, and a lot of English people watched a lot of Italian football during that era because you couldn't watch English football for free on the TV, but you could
Oh,
watch
really?
Serie A.
Oh, I
It
did
was
not know that actually.
it was during the era of Sky first starting out
Yeah.
and taking Premier League games to show on subscription-based TV.
Already. Oh,
And
okay.
so not that many people actually had subscription-based TV in the early 90s, but on a free-to-air channel, you could watch Serie A. So we all followed the career of first Paul Gascoigne, but then, Des Walker, Paul Ince went out there as well,
David
Lee
Platt.
Sharp, David Platt,
Lee
Danny
Sharp. Yeah.
Danny Dichio even
Yeah.
at one
Yeah.
point as well.
Yeah. True
Um,
that.
so yeah, just if I could have watched any player in their prime that I never got to saw, for me, Paul Gascoigne.
Fantastic. Love the team, Tom, Llama. Absolutely love that team for all the reasons you come with as well.
I don't think it would beat some of the other teams that your future guests will assemble, but it's romantically picked, and we'll just dine off Pirlo.
Yes, yes. And I
Pirlo,
like.
Gascoigne, Seedorf in the same
Ah,
midfield. Be good.
yeah, it sounds brilliant. Absolutely. And I love the personal approach to the reason why you chose the players. That's all we want to hear. Fantastic. Thanks for doing that, Llama. So now we can't drag it any longer, actually, mate. It's also time for the quiz now.
Okay, so yeah, this is the bit that worries me.
I want my guests to do well, but it would be boring if it was too easy, right?
Okay.
Yeah, let me explain the format I've set up. The format is like this. We have 5 questions that we get through. A correct answer earns you 3 points. If your answer is wrong, you'll get a second chance to guess the correct answer. I'll give you 3 options, and you'll get 1 point if you then get the right answer.
Okay.
And finally, one of the questions is a super chance. I'll let you know which one it is before we get there. A correct super chance answer will earn you 5 points.
Oof, okay.
You obviously step it up a notch for that question. But I wish you the best of luck, Llama.
Well, I think I will need it. You know when youngsters talk about ball knowledge,
Oh, yeah.
I have none, unless it's about very niche areas of the 1990s. I could be way out of my depth in this.
We'll see. It's like the theme of this podcast in total. It's a mix of Champman football manager knowledge and retro football knowledge. And we
Let's see
start
how
out.
we do then. Okay.
Yes, we start out with the most recent question, actually. What player has the highest current ability on FM24?
Oh, goodness me. Highest current ability. I'm going to say 2 names without any real confidence that will be either of these. Let me preface these names by saying, remember, I am a llama. So we start in the bottom divisions. By the time we get up to the top, it's all new gens.
Yeah, good point.
I'm going to say that I would have thought Haaland or Mbappe have got to be close. I reckon they've got to have reasonable current abilities. So I'm going to say Mbappe.
It's a very good call, and as you say, not everyone knows this because not everyone opened the editor and look at these
No.
current ability,
Well,
potential
that's
ability.
another thing about being a llama. You're not allowed to look in the editors.
Ah, fair enough. But it's a good shout though. But it is wrong.
Okay.
You said Mbappe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll give you 3 options to choose between:
Okay.
Kevin De Bruyne,
Ooh.
Erling Haaland,
Okay.
or Lionel Messi.
Current ability can't be Lionel at current, surely. Okay. And it can't be De Bruyne at current. Surely he's been on the wane, even though FM24 was released about 19 seasons ago, wasn't it? I'm going to take a punt for the point, and I'm going to go Erling Haaland.
Erling Haaland to have the highest current ability on FM24.
That's what we're saying.
Gives you 0 points.
Oh, no.
I'm so sorry to tell you the correct answer is Kevin De Bruyne.
Really?
190 current ability on FM24.
Wow. Okay. Well, do you know, I don't feel bad about that because I think if you'd have given me 50 guesses, I still wouldn't have gone with De Bruyne. Not for FM24 anyway.
Cheeky little question then. Let's get to some real football then for the
Okay.
second question. Who won the Ballon d'Or award in 1995?
Goodness me. 1995. Let me have a little think about the era
Yeah,
then. So
of course.
I'm thinking, would George Weah have been at Milan yet? I'm not sure if he would. We're coming off the back of USA 94,
Oh, yeah.
which Brazil won, of course. I don't think Beto or Romario would have been playing in Europe then. I don't think. And then you've also got, has Ronaldo started doing anything yet, or would he still be at PSV a little bit under the radar? I'm going to take a punt and say George Weah, although I think I might be a year or two away there.
Well, this answer earns you 3 points. It's correct, Llama.
Goodness me.
Incredible.
So was he at Milan by 95?
Yeah, he yes, first season at AC Milan.
Because I remember he won the Cup Winners' Cup, I think, with Arsene Wenger at PSG.
Yeah. He got 144 points in the voting. Just behind him with a 108, Jurgen Klinsmann.
Oh, well, I would not have gone there for my second guess.
No. And the third one was Jari Lidmanen.
Okay.
Third in the Ballon d'Or. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he scored a lot of goals back then.
Wow. So I can retire happy now. I've got my 3 points. That's all I came for, really.
That was a great one. Great call, Llama, I must say.
I nearly moved away from George Weah. I nearly talked myself out of it.
He was the first you mentioned. I said to myself, hold on to him, Llama. Third question.
Yep.
We did talk about CM/FM Wonder Kids earlier.
Okay.
And you also mentioned one of the greatest, Freddie Adu.
Okay.
The first time we saw him was on CM 0304.
Yeah.
But what team did he play for on that game?
So if this was the first time we saw him, I think... Now I need to get the right club. I think it would be DC United, I think.
You think correct. That's 3 points, Llama.
Thank goodness.
Brilliant. I love it.
I have cheated there, by the way. I have made a video about the life of Freddie Adu, in which I went through all the clubs that he'd played for. I made that a few years ago, but I just remember researching him and him starting out in the Washington area.
Yeah, that's ball knowledge.
Yeah, old ball knowledge, though.
All right, fourth question in the quiz. This is the super chance question.
Oh, okay.
5 points on the line, and you're on a roll.
Okay.
So we're getting a little bit more specific here. How many goals did Marco van Basten score in his international career for the Netherlands?
Wow. Okay. And I've got to get this perfectly correct, have I?
For 5 points, yes.
Well, it's okay. So let me say this is going to be a complete guess.
Yeah, of course.
But we're going to try and narrow that down a little bit because we obviously expect it to be quite high because it's Marco van Basten. But I'm pretty sure he's retired by the age of, say, 27.
Yeah, 28, yeah, something. Yeah.
So his career with the Netherlands would not have been that long. And, of course, if I'm remembering correctly, Netherlands weren't at USA 94, I don't think. So
That's true. That's true, yeah.
that would have been during his time. And I reckon he might have had some ankle ligament injuries during his career as well. So I'm going to say maybe not as many as we might expect. I'm going to say 38.
And you're onto something because national teams didn't play as many games back in the day. So even though he was a world-class player, he didn't play as many. He didn't have as many caps for the national team as we see nowadays. The correct answer is 24 goals.
Okay. Well, I'm at least not embarrassed by my answer.
No, not at all.
My guess was a bit high, but my reasoning was sound, so I'll take that as a win.
58 caps for the Netherlands,
And
24 goals.
I mean, goodness me, can you imagine if he came through now with
Yeah,
maybe better medical facilities, better
yeah,
medical diagnoses,
yeah.
and the number of international, a fit Marco van Basten would be on 100 caps for the Netherlands, wouldn't he?
Exactly. And he was capped when he was probably 19 or something. He got his
Yeah.
first cap, right? All right, we go on to the fifth and last question. And if you know this little fun fact, you will impress me again, Lama.
Okay.
So, what is Rio Ferdinand's middle name?
Oh, wow. I have absolutely no idea, but I don't think it would be asked if it was just quite a plain middle name. So I'm thinking it's got to be something quite unusual, maybe quite an interesting. I'm going to say Rio Rufus Ferdinand.
Oh, I like that actually. I like that. I must say that's probably better than the correct one. It's not Rufus. I have three options for you, of
Okay.
course. You can earn 1 point.
Okay.
Is it Lloyd, or is it Gavin, or is it Jeffrey?
So I was actually wrong. They are quite ordinary names. I so badly want it to be Gavin. I'm not that lucky, am I? Rio Gavin Ferdinand. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say Jeffrey.
You should have gone with Gavin.
No, I'm happy either way.
Yeah.
I am pleased that Rio's middle name is Gavin. That is fabulous.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. You did well, Lama. That leaves you with 6 points.
Hey, I'll take that. And do you know what?
Yeah.
I was happier with some of my wrong answers than some of my right ones. There.
Exactly. Good point as well. And you know what? That takes you to the top of the leaderboard, actually.
Yeah, maybe just for one episode, but I will take it. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see. I think you did a brilliant job. And actually, that's where we finished the show, Lama. It's been such a pleasure hanging out with you. And
who knew that chatting retro football could be so much fun, hey?
Exactly. Good point. I want to thank you for joining us, Lama. It's been so much fun. Can you please tell people where they should go if they want to watch you play some Football Manager?
Well, yeah, if you do want to watch me play some Football Manager, don't come braced for wins. Become braced for the struggle. But I stream on Twitch on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 12 noon UK, or whatever time that correlates to in your part of the world.
And do yourself a favor and turn up for a Llama stream. Always a good time. And thanks to you guys for watching the first episode of Rewind the Game. We are back soon with another episode. Please let us know in the comments if there's anyone particular you would like to see on the show who could challenge Llama for the first position in the quiz as well. That's it for us today, guys. Thank you for watching. Take care.